Do call over. Right.
I haven't yet, but I'm almost done with it. I just have to.
Oh.
Uh,
It was about that long, but. I was talking to.
Alrighty, so I'll go ahead and get us started since it's new. So welcome everybody. Just a couple of quick things for attendees. If y'all have not signed in, please do so before you leave. There's some QR codes and there's also some paper sheets back there, whatever is comfortable for you. So thank you all for being here. I'm sure some more people will continue to join us as we get started. But I'm gonna go ahead and introduce our guest speakers for today. I am honored to introduce you to Valerie's House, which is a place of hope, healing, and community for children and families who are grieving the loss of a loved one. Valerie's House first opened its doors in January of 2016, but has since grown to support the communities of Fort Myers and Pensacola, Florida. We're honored to work with them regularly through the Open Authors Program. Valerie's House is not just a counseling center. It's a warm, welcoming space where children and families can share their experiences in peer support groups and healing activities. It's a place where no one needs to feel alone with their. We're thrilled to have Crista, Brandt, and Jenny Elzweig here with us today, representing Valerie's House, Pensacola. Crista serves as the Northwest Florida Regional Director, and she began her journey with Valerie's House in 2020, when she helped establish the Pensacola branch. She opened the doors for the first time in 2021 and helped establish a permanent location in 2022, which is beautiful. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely go check it out. Jenny serves as the Escambia County Program Manager and began her journey as a board member and volunteer facilitator. She has been a constant supporter of the journey to bring Valerie's House to our community since the beginning. Please join me in welcoming Crista and Jenny today.
Yeah,
Absolutely, thank you.
thank you.
Hello, how's everybody doing? Good. I'm Jenny, I'm the program manager over at Valerie's House. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Elizabeth, for having us, and UWF College Honors Program. It's our hope today that you will leave this talk feeling empowered with just simple ways that you can make a profound difference in the lives of grieving children and teen in our community. So, nope. Yeah, should I? You want me to use it? Like, I could probably click and paste it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sure.
I know, yeah, I'm gonna be clicking on this thing, I'm clicking on that. So, as she mentioned, I've been with Valerie's House since the very beginning. I was a teacher prior to doing this. I'm a proud UWF alum. And I never imagined I'd be doing this work, but the work has changed my life for the better. It's a really, really impactful way to spend my time. And I lost my dad when I was young. I was in my early 20s though when he died. And that really helps me to connect to the kids that we serve. Crista, on the other hand, is a child of grief. She lost her mother when she was young, but I'll let her tell her story. So today, I just want to talk about some of the simple ways that you can make a difference in the lives of kids in our community. I want you to think about your role in making ripples of change, how we collectively support them. And we're just going to focus on 3 different things. I want you to try to understand and have a deeper understanding of the impact of childhood grief in our community. Oh, it's not clicking, is it?
Oh, I think. It may just be connected to the Zoom.
No. Wait.
Okay. I see. Okay, never mind, you can have this back. We got it. All right, so part of this is around understanding the deeper impact of childhood grief and what grief actually is. There's a lot of misconceptions in our community around what grief is. Some simple strategies for how you can help people in the community and raising awareness, both for yourself and for resources that you can send people that you care about too. So I want to know from you, what do you think grief? There we go. What do you think grief is? What is grief to you?
For me, it was kind of coping with the idea that they would be in my life.
Coping with the idea that they wouldn't be in your life anymore. Okay, yeah. What else?
Loss of support.
Loss of support. Okay, we only grieve people who have died. Yeah, we grieve many things. It is not only the price that we pay for love, but we also grieve our dreams, lost dreams, divorce, change of any sort. Grief comes in lots of different forms. So it's very complex, very personal. We can grieve illnesses, change life events, but it is integral. It's a way of moving forward. It's necessary. Very natural. It's something that you experience when you lost something or someone that's important to you. It's not a diagnosis, it's not something that needs to be fixed. You are not broken if you are grieving, right?
Going through my team. No.
Okay. Right, it's very unique. It's something, all of our stories are different. And our role in our community is going to affect how we grieve. So if we come from a very close-knit community where maybe we have a church family and or a social group that can help us work our way through it, that's going to be a very different experience than if you are on your own trying to manage by yourself. So, and our relationship that we have with each person is pretty unique, and so is the grief that we will experience when we're mourning that relationship. How many of you guys are familiar with the 5 stages? Would you say, like, show of hands, would you say that you subscribe to that idea? Would you say that, no, head shaking, I'm saying no. Okay, so, are most of you honored students, show of hands? How many of you guys have heard of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross? Couple of you, okay, so she is the one that came up with the 5 stages of grief. And, it has since been debunked. But here's the deal, like, it's a really, really great thing that she brought this into the public view, that she started doing research on this, because it kind of shined a spotlight on grief in a way that had never been done before. But here's the thing, she was studying people's reaction to their own impending mortality. So these people were ill, and she was talking to them about, like, what does that look like? What does that feel like for you? And that's how she developed these 8 little stages of grief: anger, denial, bargaining, things of that nature. When we're talking about grieving the loss of somebody or something that we love, it is a mess. And unfortunately, we can't stick it into these nice neat little boxes. So it's something, when we're talking to our kids about it, we kind of use a slinky as a little tool to help them understand. You never know when it's gonna sneak back up and get you. So we learn to live with our grief, right? It's not something that goes away. It's not something that shrinks over time. One time we had a family, she was a widow. Her husband died of suicide. He had been struggling with PTSD, and she had 2 young children when he died. The day that he died, she had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And she woke up that day and she, when it happened, she felt like somebody handed her a backpack full of concrete, 20 pounds of concrete, and said, "Guess what, you get to carry this every day for the rest of your life." And she said that there were some days that she looked at that backpack and she just couldn't do it. But, some days she would put it on and it would bring her to her knees. But she had to keep getting that. She had to keep putting it on. And what ended up happening is she got stronger. And so that the shape and the weight of that grief didn't change, but she built the muscles to carry it. And that's how we believe, we move through our world with our grief. That you just learn how to get stronger. It doesn't necessarily shrink. The grief is not just sadness, it's not just one thing, it is multiple things. It affects our physicality, it affects our cognitive ability, it affects our relationship with a higher power, our behavior, and oh, goodness, you guys, this is just too much. Oh, this. And I was usually hang out. Okay, I got back for. Okay, so this is for everybody, and a lot of my parents that come in and that we work with have this revelation that grief is a very physical experience. It's not just something that happens in your mind or in our heart. It's very physical. It manifests as illnesses many times, as being, unable to sleep, unable to eat, lots of changes. And for kids, same. However, it can look a little bit different. Childhood grief is often misunderstood. So a lot of times, it can be minimized, in our culture, we say kids are resilient. They're resilient. Fine, and a lot of times when the adults are grieving, the same loss as the child, kids' grief ends up in the shadows. So kids may avoid expressing their grief for many different reasons, and one of them may be to avoid upsetting their caregiver. A lot of times children's grief is misattributed to things like ADHD and learning disabilities. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like in a little bit, but what we've realized is that when it's not supported, it can have some very serious long-term effects on these kiddos. And there are many, many things that kids want adults to know about what it feels like to be a grieving kid. They want to know the truth. They want to know the truth about what's happened in their life. And at Valerie's house, that is something that we encourage. A lot of our families come in with situations that are highly stigmatized. We have our suicide, our overdose deaths, and they don't want to tell the kids the whole story. But it's really, really vital that we tell our kids age-appropriate, bite-sized truths. Kids want, they are going to look at their grown-ups in their life to model how to grieve, what that looks like. They want to talk about their person, even if they don't seem like they do. Giving them the space to do that is really powerful and important. They express their emotions through play. That's how kids tell their story. So a lot of times a lot of grown-ups come in and they're like, oh, they're doing just fine. They're fine, they're not crying, they're just playing. They'll go up to random strangers and they'll say, oh, my dad's dead, and then 5 seconds later they're turn around and they'll go play. It's very typical behavior for kids. They need to know, they need reassurance, they need to know who's going to take care of them. They need routine, they need structure. They need to be included in grieving rituals and mourning rituals. They need to be empowered. They need their adults to help them feel safe. So just some of the things that our kiddos experience in their own grief. And I'm gonna have Krista come up here and talk about the.
Sit there here and do that.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I'm seriously, that's now.
So, and if people might be very surprised to see some of these numbers when, we go out and educate the community regularly about childhood grief and really the epidemic that it is on our society. So just in our two counties, Escambia and Santa Rosa, we know that 1 in 8 in Escambia County and then 1 in 11 in Santa Rosa are predicted to lose a parent or a sibling by the time they turn 18. That number equates to almost 13,000 kids who will be grieving. Those numbers are astounding for our area. And we know that kids without the support that we've kind of talked about are at a greater risk of a lot of challenges that then end up rippling through our entire community. Go ahead and go to the next slide. For instance, we know that grieving kids without the support and the tools to know how to grieve are 5 times more likely to struggle with addiction, anxiety, depression. They're 2 times more likely to see their grades drop, and like 80% of the kids we worked with lose concentration in school. Yet now they're seen as either troublemakers or their grades are dropping, so now they're a bad student, not they can't concentrate because they don't understand what's going on inside of them. And they need resources, right? If they're not a discipline struggle or a problem. We know that they're 5 times more likely to try and become addicted to the same substance that put them into their grief if their parent died in active addiction. It's perpetuating the cycle. And so if we cannot get there and help the children today, that's going to ripple through our, into our entire society in terms of mental health struggles, which is on the rise across our entire society, workforce and economic stability, and just the overall health of a community. We also know that they are much more likely to try risk-taking behaviors. Now we're all, especially in teens, we're always taking, we all try some risk-taking, but much higher levels of risk-taking, as well as self-harming, right? You see a lot of eating disorders might develop, cutting, like physical pain, because the pain inside of them is so deep and strong and they don't know how to work through it. Those are all the type of things that kids use to be able to work through what they're feeling because they don't even know how to express it. And what some of the things that Jenny pointed out is that people think, well, if they're not crying, they're fine, right? But that's actually one of the last emotions you'll see immediately from a child. I mean, I didn't cry. I was confused, I was shocked, and then somewhere in my head, I was like, oh, I gotta be strong for my brother, so I'm not gonna cry. Which we do not recommend, right? Expressing emotions are done in a good way, but all of these things up here, I excelled at. Because I did not know anybody else who was going through what I was going through. And so by being able to just help and support children today, we are actually changing not only the trajectory of their lives, but every single life that they'll touch in our society.
So one of the most protective factors in the child's life is having one parent, one ally, and you can be that ally for a child.
Or one of your peers.
Or one of your peers. So I just wanted to give you some language that you can use. I mean, how often have you guys had somebody come up to you, tell you something has happened, and you just had no idea what to say? Right? Or how many of you have said the wrong thing?
Or you don't know what's wrong.
Instant like foot and mouth moment, like, oh my God, why would I say that? Okay. So we're gonna address that today and just talk about some of the things that you can say in lieu of what you might, the first thing pops in your head. So we're gonna talk about decreasing the stigma and the misconceptions around grief, normalizing and validating people's experiences, just showing up and leaning in, and then how to create some connection. Okay, what not to say. Crista was reading these this morning and she said she had a visceral reaction to some of these things. Yeah. So, saying things like, oh, we've gone to a better place. Your intention might be good, but in reality, that's not helpful in that moment for that person who's missing somebody so deeply.
And and what, to piggyback on what Jenny was saying, like when we were reading this and I was physically, I heated up, I was getting angry because people used to say that to me when I was 11 years old. well, your mom's, she's not hurting anymore. She's in a better place in heaven. I'm like, what about me? Right? But they think that they're trying to share something comforting, but I mean, the fact that it still impacts me, and I have that same type of reaction. That's how powerful what you say to somebody, especially a grieving child, might be. That's the impact.
Things like sleep and never woke up. Euphemisms are hard for kiddos, we need to use very clear language when we're talking to children about death and dying. At Valerie's house, we use the words death, dying, died, dead, because kids need to hear that. It's so confusing. It's such a confusing concept, and then when we add all these fluffy euphemisms, then kids are like, I mean, they're already dealing with magical thinking. We've got video games telling them that their characters are gonna come right back to life. They're trying to figure out, like, is this real? Like, so we want to use as clear language as possible.
I wanted to.
Yeah.
Around the examples of what Jesus is talking about is you'll hear people say, oh, well, mommy's with Jesus now. And then later on, a kid will be like, well, where's Jesus? And can we go there? Where's heaven? Can I go there? Like, it's confusing. They think that the person's just gone somewhere to visit and that they're coming back physically. Right? So that's why not being completely honest and using these specific words ends up causing way more confusion than it does protection, which is generally what a caregiver or someone's trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, so avoiding euphemisms, passed away, lost. I've had little kids like, well, they're lost, and we need to go find them, I mean, truly. Using destigmatizing language. So at Valerie's house, we talk about not using the expression committed suicide. If we're trying to lift that stigma away. So you'll hear us say things like died by suicide, just like you might die by cancer or any other thing like that. We try to remove some of the shame these kids are feeling around some of the losses. So honest, age appropriate, compassionate language. Oh, the other one I wanted to point out is I know exactly how you feel. How many of you guys have heard that? We all experience loss. It's one of those things that's so unifying. We can't help but grieve at some point in our life, but my gosh, we're all so different. Our relationships are so different. So you don't know exactly. They don't know how you feel. But you can relate, you can share your stories when it's appropriate, but try to listen. So I feel like that's pretty good advice. Okay, so try some of these grief-informed approaches instead. Things like, I know there are no words to make it better, just know that I'm here and I want to support you however I can. Or, I'm sad to hear that your dad died, and then just give them some space. I'm here, even if it's just to sit and to listen. That could be a follow-up to something like, I'm so sorry to hear that happened, which I've had many people say to me, like, I'm so tired of hearing people say how sorry they are. But that's a natural reaction, we are empathetic people. But if you follow up with, I'm so sorry that happened to me, but I'm here for you. I'm here to listen whenever you want to talk about your person. That is a very powerful gift that you are giving person. And then again, using language like died by suicide rather than committed. Okay, so I want you to think about just normalizing and validating people's experiences. So educating yourself about normal grief reactions, and I say normal very broadly, everybody's different again. But we know that most kids react certain ways at certain points in their life. So educating yourself about that, knowing that a kid may there might be an uptick in behaviors at school after their person dies, and it's not because they have a diagnosable disorder or because they're a bad kid. It's because they're grieving and it's got to do with those feelings. Understanding that academics are the first thing to go when a child is grieving the loss of a person. That is the number one thing. And so if they're slipping, being prepared to provide extra supports for them in that situation. Expecting a range of thoughts, feelings, and reactions. It's so hard as an adult to deal with grief. Imagine a kid trying to learn the world around them and then having to deal with this on top of that. So just anticipating that it's going to be and just, you know, helping to usher them through that. And reminding kids that it's normal. All the things that they're feeling is normal. One of our rules at Valerie's house is it's okay to feel. And we talk to them like, is it okay to feel mad? Is it okay to feel, you know, angry? Is it okay to feel confused and guilty? Is that, and we talk about what all those feelings mean. And the answer is yes. Not always an excuse for bad behavior. You can be mad, but you can't be mean. But you know, all of those feelings are natural and normal and okay. Why are you laughing at me?
I use it as an excuse.
Okay, so here are some other things that you might be able to say to somebody. So, teach me how your grief has been showing up for you. Give them space to think about that and talk about. Validating, it makes sense that you feel that. You may feel like you need to be strong, but you don't need to be strong. That was one that actually came up last night in the group. We had a little girl, oh, I'm sorry, I was talking to the adult, her little girl was flitting around us, and the adult was telling me about her 11-year-old cousin who has not had an opportunity to grieve the loss of her yet. That she just feels like she has to be tough for the people around her, for the adults around her, and then on top of that, she's being bullied at school. And she was just like this ball of just like distress. And her cousin, her older cousin looked at her and said this exact thing. She's like, I know you feel like you have to be strong for everything else, but you don't have to be strong for me. And she sat with her for an hour, just let her cry. And that was exactly what she needed, you know. You can say things like, you know, sometimes grief affects our sleep. Is there, you know, are you having a hard time sleeping? So you're anticipating, because you've learned about how grief affects the body. Like you've educated yourself so you can give that as a gift to a grieving individual. I heard that it'll affect your appetite. Have you been eating? Things of that nature. And then just saying things like, I can imagine it's really hard to have questions that you don't have the answer to. That's especially important when it comes to losses like suicide, you know, because there's so many unanswered questions that they're having to shoulder, and just validating that we know that sucks. It's really hard. We can't fix it for them, but we can create space to make it for it. You too. You can show up and you can lean in and you can create space. You can take their lead and just follow their pace. Be compassionately curious. Try to imagine things from their perspective. Instead of just immediately trying to think about times when you were in the same situation, listen with just compassionate curiosity, you know, from their point of view. And again, just realize that there's nothing that you can say or do that will fix their situation. So just show up, be there for them. So a lot of our teams especially deal with these, you know, intrusive thoughts and they feel very isolated and very alone. So there are things that you can do to help them not only feel seen and feel validated, but also to help them create connections. So you can help connect them with healthy coping skills with their person who died. Just because a person died does not mean that relationship is dead. They can continue to have a relationship with their person. With other people that have shared experiences and with resources and support like we have at Valerie's house. How many of you guys are familiar with the invisible strength? Have you ever seen that movie? That's so weird. We have a couple of our volunteers in the house, by the way. So, yeah, the invisible strength is an amazing little book that we use all the time for our kids. And it's just about the string that connects you to your person, the heartstring that connects them. And that's a powerful metaphor. We speak in metaphors a lot at Valerie's house. It just helps us, paint a picture of grief. It's something that's so hard to wrap your mind. Connection is so vital. So try these grief-informed approaches. You can ask them, what are some things that you'd like me to know about your town? What were some things that you'd like to do with it? I know a special day is coming up. Just wanted you to know that I'm thinking about you. Planning on doing anything on that special day to, help you remember. What are some things that you can do that help you feel close to her? Sometimes when I feel upset, it helps me to go outside for a walk. You wanna go for a walk together? Simple. It's really simple. This is not rocket science, guys. But it's one of those things that we just, just taking a little bit of time and putting some thought and effort into it go really long. Okay, when to seek additional support. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, we do not need to pathologize grief. Grief is a very natural, normal experience in our lives. But there are times when it can become problematic. So I apologize for the colors here, not great. But if you have a kid or a person in your life who's completely denying the reality of death, if they have persistent panic or fear, if there's a lot of risk-taking behavior, chronic apathy, and these things are pretty normal in the beginning. And there's no one to say like, hey, it's 6 months, you should be over this by now. That's not how it works. But these are just some little guidelines, and it'll depend person by person. But if you have noticed like prolonged physical complaints or talk of self-harm or plan, if you're talking about suicide, obviously you're going to want to try to reach out and get additional support. Suicide in particular, if the child has lost a person to suicide and they start talking about, wanting to be with their person, and that it's a little bit more of a red flag in that situation. They've actually lost their person to suicide. So that's just something to be aware of. But there are lots of people in the community who are here to help. We can normalize seeking mental health care, which I feel like we're doing a much better job of these days, but just normalize the desire to have a professional counselor in their life. That's a really good way to help. And now we'd like to tell you a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of how we do what we do.
That's it.
I will.
Okay. All right, so how many people have heard of Valerie's house before today? Oh, wonderful. That's great. So Valerie's house is a grief center, and our sole and only mission is supporting grieving children after the loss of a parent, sibling, close family member, right? And we support the children and their caregiver, as Jenny mentioned too. So Jenny, we've talked about how I was a grieving child. When I was 11, January of 1987, I went to school like any other normal 6th grader, took a test, saw my friends. But by lunch, I was forced to digest the words that a child should ever hear, and that's your mom died this morning. I did not know anybody else who had gone through it. I didn't even know people who had lost a grandparent at this point. And I was confused, I was shocked. Then I just started thinking about, okay, I gotta be strong for my brother. Just like we see some of our other kids do in the story that Jenny just told. So it's like, well, I'm not gonna cry because I gotta be strong. I have no idea where this came from. But that's what I did. I mean, I've been a caregiver for him since I was sick when my mom was diagnosed with cancer. But the way that the other thing that we hadn't touched on too is something called, we refer to as secondary losses. Right, so my mom's death wasn't the end. It was actually the beginning of the end of my life, as I had known it. Because over the course of 6 months, we had to sell my childhood home. Moved from Athens, Georgia to live in Atlanta with my dad and my stepmother full time. I lost everything I had ever known. My mom was a choir director, so I had gone to this one church, literally probably averaged 3 times a week since I was 1. That's gone. All of those family friends, my neighborhood friends, school friends, everybody that and everything about my life was over in a 6 months period. So, and I'm 12 at this point, and I'm a girl. I mean, we all know that the middle school years are terrible, I feel like they get worse as generations go by, but I had no idea what was going on, and I did not want to think about it. I didn't cry, so I told everybody I'm fine because I'm not crying. My parents actually did send me to get some counseling, me and my brother, which I thought at that time was very weird. And because they wanted me to go, I obviously was not going to participate in that. But I very much embraced it later on, but it wasn't what I needed. I didn't understand what was going on. I felt very alienated, alone, and the way that I dealt with my grief was by overachieving. And I overachieved at a lot of good things, and I overachieved at a lot of bad things. So the consistency was the overachieving, right? But those bad coping mechanisms, cost me decades of opportunity, caused me hurt. Because of that overachieving, I consumed my lifetime allotment of alcohol before the age of 37. So I do not drink anymore. That was my coping mechanism when I was in high school. That then turned into alcoholism. Lost opportunities. This is what happens when kids aren't given an opportunity to understand what's going on with them. So my entire purpose is to make the tragedy of losing my own mom a gift to another grieving child today. And that's exactly what we do at Valerie's house. And what we did was we launched a chapter of Valerie's house here in Pensacola in 2021. So as Elizabeth referred to earlier, it launched in 2016 out of Fort Myers by Angela. And Angela, you see, that's her and I in the middle. She and I, when we met during COVID, we just were introduced to each other because I want to know how she started her grief center in her region. And we instantly bonded over losing our moms in the same year, 1987, and at the same age. And it was that connection that allowed us to be able to start the chapter here versus trying to start something on our own so we could start making immediate impact. And that's what we did. So we launched in April of 2021. Big Brothers Big Sisters, is everybody familiar with that organization? They opened up their space to us so that we could launch our very first peer-to-peer support group there. And what we were incredibly blessed for them to be able to do that. And before I jump into where we are today, just a little bit about what we do at Valerie's house. So our core model at the core is this peer-to-peer support model. Right? And this is to bring kids together so that they can connect with other kids going through similar experiences. And each family that's enrolled in our program, they come twice a month. And that allows them to build those connections not only with each other, but with the Valerie's House team and the volunteers that work with them and provide them that consistency. But that is at the core of our program. Over the course of 4 years, we've expanded to offer really free comprehensive grief support around that core-to-core, peer-to-peer model, right? So we have this one-on-one therapy. The majority of our one-on-one therapy happens through our partners. So we have a lot of strong partnerships and we're able to refer families and children to when they do want to supplement what they're doing at Valerie's house with some additional one-on-one support. We have our Meet the Children Where They Are programs. So we do a full group all year at Pace Center for Girls. Is anybody familiar with that organization? Yes, no? Okay, well, I'll pause. So Pace Center for Girls is an organization where they take basically the girls who've been forgotten and they're about to go to juvie. They've been kicked out of school. Many of them are homeless or living on somebody's couch. And this is their last resort. And at Pace Center, they're giving counseling. They give year-long schooling so that they're constantly on a schedule and doing things they're not given that summer just to be getting back into trouble, which is what they have been doing. And many of those children who are at PACE because they've been in constant trauma since they were little. But the school systems treat them like they're just a giant behavior problem and what they need is resources, and that's what PACE does. So we go into PACE and work with their kids who are grieving. And not just grieving the death of like a death, but loss from abandonment, loss from incarceration. That's huge in our area. And people are calling in, and Jenny talks to them all the time, like we would love to be able to offer a group that's geared towards alternative loss, for lack of a better term, right? But those type of things, divorce, incarceration and abandonment, those are massive losses. So we also do programs with the YMCA, with Help and Hope Clinic. Y'all are familiar with them. They have a new mental health area and they provide free services and healthcare to those who don't have healthcare from age 18, I think, or 26 to 65, basically before you can get Medicaid. So we have our full summer programs. We do a lot of family fun events. Something that Jenny said that I use in every single time I talk to somebody is, we're not a place of sadness. Valerie's house is a place of joy. Kids come running in our place. They're kicking off their shoes. They feel at home. They're going to the kitchen. They're getting all the teddy bears down and having fights with them. It's Jenny's favorite part. Yeah, they are having fun. And we make it so that kids want to come. They want to feel loved and they're comfortable. So we do a lot of times just for people to build that community, right? They don't have to build a bond just by talking about your grief, right? You build a bond talking about the video games, or if you have a crush on a school, or maybe you're being bullied, like some of our kids do get bullied, right? And those are other ways just to be able to bond with the people who will then end up being some of your best friends. We see some of these relationships that have formed over the past 3 years, and it's absolutely beautiful to watch the friendships and the support. And it's not anything we realized going into this that we would see that, and it's absolutely beautiful. The way that those in the program, the caregivers as well as the kids, naturally become mentors without even, going through like a mentoring program or anything. And they become our family and junior ambassadors. And they're a super fun group. We have a lot of fun with them. The other thing big to talk about is the wraparound service. So what we started to realize fairly immediately, especially once we got into our permanent locations, so many of these families have a lot of things going on, or they need a lot of additional support, legal support. Now somebody needs like guardianship. They don't know what to do, right? They should be able to they need to get the social security of, for the children of the person who died. I mean, all of these type of things. They have financial struggles. They need housing. They need tutoring. I mean, there's so many services and things that our families need. And so we try to make sure that we connect them to the resources and the programs out in our community, because there's so many that sometimes it's hard to kind of shuffle through. You just don't even know where to look. So, and
We also, we volunteer at Valerie's house. So one of the ways that we teach the kids that they can cope with their own grief is by helping other people. So we'll do things like go to Ron McDonald house, and we'll cook meals for them over there.
the Navy will.
Yeah, we're doing the NAMI walk for like suicide. So that's good. We try to approach the kids from all different sides and teach them lots of different ways that they can cope, kind of build their tool belt, if you will, because grief is inescapable and something they're gonna have to go for the rest of their lives. So the more tools that we can equip them with, as little kids, the better off they're gonna be. So kids come to us from all different spaces. They can self-refer. They're also referred from lots of different organizations around the community, lots of schools, mental health professionals, funeral homes, first responders, all over the place. If they can get to me, they can text me or email me, however they get there, they get there. It's not the kind of thing where they need a professional referral to come to Valerie's.
And so a little bit more about the details of our program. And so our core focus is children ages 4 to 18, really like K through 12. But if a family has a younger child, and they don't have caregiving for that child, we don't want that to prevent them from being able to come. So we also will take care of the younger kids, which sometimes that ends up being more like babysitting and playing, but I'm telling you, the 3-year-olds and the 2-year-olds know why they're there. And they'll be able to tell you who died, and they'll kind of do the activity, but they know. And many people in society think that little kids have no idea what's going on. I'm like, they do. So every single thing that we offer at Valerie's house is free to our families. So another thing that's really been beautiful to watch is the bonds that have been formed between people of massively different backgrounds, different religions. We have families who have gifted us $500,000 to buy our location, and families who we've Ubered there and we send them home with all of our extra food. And when they're at Valerie's house, all we focus on is our commonality. And I'm saying 99% of the time, in the past 4.5, almost 5 years, it's been amazing, right? We, as I mentioned, that every family comes twice a month to their assigned group night. But we do have 3 that we offer that are once a month. One is a young adult group. That means once a month. We have another one for infancy and pregnancy loss. And that meets once a month, as well as our junior and family ambassador group meets once a month. So I mentioned that we started with 1 group, right? And so that when we originally started, we met twice a month. Now we have 13 groups a month. So 13 group nights a month at Valerie's house, 4 at Base Center for Girls, sometimes 5, depending on the number. And we have outside groups that are coming in, like Youth Left Behind, and we do stuff with them as well. So as many people as we can touch, we're trying to, not only just the education on what grief is and what it looks like, but why is it so important for us to know about this and to support children and their families as they're going through this? All of our, the other part of the way group works is every night begins with a shared meal. Now, the kids are usually like running around and half eating. And then when it's time to go into their age group, they want to take their food with them. So that's a constant battle. But it's free time and just sitting and sharing a meal with, others who are in your same circumstances. And it's a fabulous time where it's fun and people are getting to bond. So we start with that, then we break into age groups. And the caregivers then are also meeting at the same time. And every activity is designed around an aspect of grief, whether it could be what is your grief journey, what is a way that you can stay connected to your person who has gone on, even though they're not physically here. And what are coping mechanisms, right? So every activity is designed around that, and it's all art, play, movement, slime. Anything that kids will play with, we can make it into an activity. And then I will take some of these activities. I've taken them to my friends, adults, and had them do them for their own challenges they're going through. For my own team, I repurpose our activities and do activities with her when she doesn't want to talk about emotions, which is all the time because she's 14. But that we make learning about grief, we do it in a fun way. And I know that doesn't sound like it should make any sense. It does. And it works. And then now you have children who are 8, 9, and 10. They'll walk up to anybody and tell them exactly what Valerie's house is, what they've gotten from Valerie's house, who died. Like it's, they're talking about taking a math test. That's amazing. I couldn't even, the only time I ever mentioned my mom was when I was trying to have some type of like shock value on people. Oh, well, I can't ask my mom because she's dead. And a lot of kids do that, especially the teens. We talk about it. So I think that's the main part of monthly work. So we started with 15 kids, 10 caregivers, and we've served close to 650 children and their caregivers. But when we also look at the entire, like the household numbers of the families, we were 900 that we've been able to touch. And Jenny, leading the program team, and it is amazing the type of growth that we've seen and then how they are influencing others. So outcomes of what peer-to-peer support does, right? Why is it so important? I mean, we all just know the power of being able to connect with somebody who doesn't understand math, right? Or, oh, I came from Alaska too, right? Being able to find that commonality with somebody is hugely validating. And we actually know that 90% of the children who are in some type of peer support group or for grief share that they have decreased feelings of isolation, right? It's that isolation that leads to that self-harming behavior and not being able to understand or get anything out. They're able to express their thoughts and their feelings all around what grief is. You know, that 70% of them, if they are able to come and work through understanding all the emotions of grief, are actually will develop emotional regulation and healthy coping mechanisms within 12 months. At least start to be able to do that. Mine didn't even start until I was 23. And I worked for many decades to get to where I am today and still working. Thank you. And so the fact that they're able to express, identify, and understand all of their emotions, that helps them also lead to the decrease in anxiety and depression, which many of us deal with without throwing in a trauma and traumatic event, right? So there are numbers that back up what we're doing. And, we are so blessed to be able to do the work that we do. We cannot do our work without a huge volunteer base. And we get a lot from UWF. We are so incredibly blessed, especially the honors team here. I think every single person from the honors group that has come to volunteer with us or be an intern has stayed unless they moved away.
Ours now.
Yeah. We have some who become employees for periods of time.
Internships we offer.
Yeah. And there's no training. You don't need training because we're not doing formal therapy. I mean, you don't need formal training like a degree, right? There's just 2-day training that goes through how do you actually implement this peer model, right? We're really facilitating what's happening with the group. And we're practicing something called reflection, right? So instead of trying to ask questions when a child shares something, we just reflect back to them what they said, right? So a kid says, I had a bad day today, someone made fun of me on the playground because I didn't have a mom. So we want to start asking questions, right? But what we teach them is you had a bad day, someone made fun of you. And you're telling them, I hear you, I'm acknowledging what comes out, and then they will naturally share what they need to share and what they want to share. But it's just giving them the space to be able to think about that.
So these are just some little quotes from our kids and caregivers that really illustrate the power of what we've been able to do at Valerie's Health. So Zachy, his mom said before he didn't want to talk to me about it. Valerie's Health has truly changed him. He talks about his emotions, he's so much happier, and he now knows that he's not alone. After the first meeting, he was shocked that so many kids can experience similar situations. We have seen that kid grow. And let's see. Have you been with him? You haven't. You've been with him. I mean, it has been quite a journey with many of our kiddos. They come in angry. They come in confused. They come in just completely closed in, and then you can just watch them blossom. With Hannah there in the middle, and she said, I was sad and lonely before going to Valerie. I also didn't want to talk to my mom because I didn't want her to make her sad, which is something we see all the time. Now I made friends who've lost loved ones like me. I can talk to them. I don't feel lonely or sad. I love going to Valerie's house because I get to talk about my grief. And then I love this story. So Isher is one of our wonderful mamas who has been with us since day one. 3 children. She lost her husband. Yeah, we call them our OGs. So she came in broken after her husband died. And she is our first caregiver who has gone on to remarry. And it makes me tear up because it's so beautiful that we got to be a part of that journey. Yeah, she says that she wouldn't have gotten to that place without the support group. That's Crista at the wedding.
And this family and her husband, current husband Barry, he comes to Valerie's house with our events too, and he's amazing and supports everything that they do to still remember her husband Charles. But that was such for a full circle moment for us, is when we really started to see the outward results of what we do every day at Valerie's house. And as we've been here now longer, we're able to see that more and more, and it gives you the strength to keep going on days when you're just like, oh my gosh, how are we gonna do all this? Which is kind of every day, but.
So. How can you get involved? If you feel this kind of touches your heart, you feel like if you have your own losses in your life that, you know, you might be able to turn your pain into power and a gift of your own to these kids. It's a really great way of doing it. It's super cathartic to come and be with kids who are walking through what you've once gone through. You do the activity side by side with these babies. And so you are processing right there with them in a healthy, safe way. So if you feel drawn to that, please reach out to us. We're always looking for group buddies. You know, like she said, you don't have to have any special training this work. You don't even have to have a loss of your own.
Yeah.
You just have to have a heart for kids. We will train you on how to do it. And I know it sounds scary and overwhelming to sit with kids who've experienced such tremendous trauma, but you can do it. If you have a heart for the kids, and you can definitely do it. So we're always looking for group buddies. It's a twice a month commitment, 3 hours each time. And we ask for consistency, you know, that you do commit and show up. Because that's where relationships are built. Kids learn to trust you and expect you to be there and get excited when they see you. Jose is there all the time and he kiddos love
Their
him
hand.
so much. They love him so much. He has been a true change maker at Valerie's house. We're always looking for behind the scenes helpers. If you are into like letter writing or you know, we send birthday cards, we send death anniversary cards, sending letters to donors in the community, thanking them for their support, because we are totally nonprofit. So, you know, we're trying to love on our donors as much as we love on our families. We're always looking for greeters and dinner helpers. We do serve a full meal every night. Obviously, donations are helpful. We have a book drive that's going, the Amazon wish list. And just advocating. If you hear of somebody who needs some help, letting them know that we exist. Like our young adult group, it's a tiny little baby up here. There's not too many people in there yet, but I would love to grow it because I know college can be such a difficult time. You know, you're straddling these two worlds, you're becoming, you know, your own self, your own adult human being, and then if you're grieving on top of that, my God, that's a lot. So come be with other people who get it. We'll teach you. We're here to hold. So yeah, that's just some ways that you can help. And then the last slide, you think that would happen, but I don't. If we can do anything for you, there's our contact information. That QR code will take you to our website. You are always welcome to reach out to us. A shout out to the Luna Network. I got a lot of our slides from inspired by their brief information material. And Aluna is a network of grief organizations around the country, and they have awesome resources. So if you ever get a chance to go, you're meeting something, say you have, you know, a kiddo who is neuro, you know, diverse and has lost their brother to suicide, like 3 very specific things, you can go into their resources and pull up things that are specifically for that situation. So, just a little plug there for them. But yeah, we're here. We're very, very grateful that you guys had us out today and that you were so intently.
Any questions?
Any questions? Yeah.
Comments?
Yes.
You said that you guys meet 2 times a month. I feel like I normally hear that it takes children or adults or anyone a certain amount of time to become comfortable with each other around, how do you address that if they're only meeting twice a month?
That's actually the way to do that, to get them to, build those bonds and be comfortable. Is coming regularly. And so they come twice a month. And it does take some time, right, to build that. I mean, in most of our families, on average, what we see right now, they're in our full program twice a month and for 18 weeks, with pretty consistent attendance. And then, it kind of starts to back off a little bit. So it does take some time. I mean, usually though, we say after 2 or 3 times, sometimes the kids will like walk in and they'll be leaving, they're like, can we come next week? Right, but 3 times being there, they start to feel a little bit more comfortable. And if people don't want to share, they don't have to. Right, so you see that a lot with the caregivers too. They sit in their group and they listen, or it's too difficult for them to talk about the loss. And they're just absorbing what they hear, but by being with those who are also not only grieving themselves, but raising grieving kids, then they're able to start feeling more comfortable, and then we'll start sharing. I mean, I was having lunch or coffee with one of our moms the other day. When she came in June of 2023 to our program, her and her little boy. She took one step into Valerie's house and started crying. The little boy was like so excited because it was like movie night. We were all in jammies and we were watching Inside Out. And we had stuff all over the floors. And, she was standing there almost like shaking. And I went up and I was like, it's okay. Do you need to go outside? And she was like, yes. And I think Jenny was out of town and she told me she lost, her husband died on a motorcycle. And just so happens that 2 of our OGs were there, Dawn and Alana, who had lost their husbands on motorcycles. And Dawn lost her husband and son. And so they were able to go outside and sit with her on the porch for 3 hours. And she's like, that's right when I knew I was at the right place. And now she, we come full circle and she says the other day, I know what you mean now when you say, because I can grieve without pain. And that's what I talk about. I still grieve. But it just looks a little different, and I can grieve without pain. And that's just a beautiful journey. And it's when they give it, and when they're open, they get those bonds. But yeah, it's like 18 months that they generally say. There's not that, oh, you only come for 12 weeks and then that's it, check the box, you're good. And they can come back.
And it also is so dependent on their personality too, but I hear what you're saying, like, how could you possibly form that, that trusting bond with these people in, twice a month for an hour and a half or whatever, but our little ones, very quick, it's very, very quick. Middles and teens take a little bit more time a lot of times, but I mean, 9 times out of 10, they're like exchanging phone numbers,
Yeah.
texting, they're, on group chats and stuff after the first meeting, like, it's really amazing. And I don't know, like I said, not rocket science, like, we're literally just carving out space where we can be together, to build with each other. That's incredibly powerful. Any other thoughts? Questions?
I wanted to know if there was any specific instance that you had where you felt that things really came full circle. Because I know that there was a couple moments where you were like, yeah, this is like the right spot, but I know with your personal experience, there's probably a lot of inner feelings with that.
Yeah. So you're just making sure I understand, like full circle moments for me?
Yeah.
All right, well, and Jenny would always ask me like, have you had your moment yet? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm like, next thing, what are we doing? But I'd say one of the first things was the very first intake that we did. Actually, we had an UWF intern who helped us start. And then she also was, we paid her some as well, but it was her and I, and she was meeting with the caregiver, Bruce, who we now call the patriarch of Valerie's house. And then we have the patriarch of the volunteers over here. So, and they were coming in and the dad was like, she won't talk about it. She won't open up, blah, blah, blah. I was with Emma literally for like 3 seconds. And I was like, my mom died when I was 11. And she's like, oh, my mom, I was 10. 5 minutes into it, we're looking at pictures. we're talking about it, I'm like, my mom died of cancer, my mom died of cancer too. Right, and an instant bond, and I was like, this is, we're doing, we're doing the right thing. I was still completely scared, but now Emma is one of our greatest mentors, she talks everywhere. Her and I do now, we do activities together. Well, I observe and she makes it look good. My vision never translates. So,
She's like, Jenny, let's do art. Okay, you're gonna do this.
and I'm like, I like that. I'll stand over here. But I would say the very first, big, holy cow, was at our first remembrance night, which is called Wave of Light, and it's in June. And it's out at the beach on the sound side, and all the families come out. And that first night, the first night we did it was, I think maybe 120 people. And we did that in the first in June of 2023. And it's just a time of gathering. We are eating and we're hanging out, and kids are, in the water, pockets of caregivers hanging out like any other, company having a picnic on the beach. And then around sunset, we come together for a ceremony. And as you can see, like here, this is a lake building, the kids ride on, and caregivers, everybody can create their own lantern, and then we will all light a candle, electronic candle, in honor of them. And it was at that first one that we were all standing around in this giant group. And I looked around, I was like, wow, we did this. I mean, poor Jenny, she had to come with me on this journey, but that was my holy cow. And that was pretty cool. So I get those moments more often than I used to. Try and enjoy it, but the 3 different times this week, actually, with 2 caregivers and 1 teen who was having a crisis. But that's what we can do, and they call us or they text us. I need you. And you go and you help, and it's just because they need someone to listen to.
We're a family, it's more than just these things. We keep our finger on the pulse of each of our families. We're constantly doing family care calls, just checking on them, like, hey, we do an enrollment when they first get there. We have these long conversations with them to start building that relationship, but that it doesn't end there. We're always just checking in, making sure they're doing okay. Do you need any extra support? Some of our families become very food insecure because their primary breadwinners died, So we make sure to get them in contact with the people, wrapping our arms around them and helping. Ask anything, how business was, how we grew the business, I mean, it could be anything. Any other thoughts, questions?
And we'll be here after you have our contact information. We can give you our cards too.
Well, she can give you her card, I can give you her card.
I have some too. Actually, I think I left in the car, but.
Thank you.
Oh, no, I didn't. Same thing, guys. Jenny.
If y'all can join me in saying thank you to our wonderful speakers. Thank you both so much for being here, and thank you for sharing the story. I think it's wonderful, and hopefully some of you will feel inspired to go and support or maybe recommend some people to Valerie's house and for the awesome efforts that they're working on. So I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Next week, same time, same place, we will be here with Professor Sarah Scotch from the Department of Theater. She's going to be talking about her own journey with MS. So if you have chronic illness or know anybody with chronic illness, that might be something that you can relate to as well. And also talking about her job as performing with that and performing with grief and around death and all of that kind of stuff. So I hope you guys will be able to make it. So having a wonderful weekend. And of course, if you have any questions, Crista and Jenny will be here if you have some, or I'm there as well. Thank you all.
Thank you. I just thought. What?